chain thing? Well, it ends up starting from the sun. And so what I'm going to do, and I want you to do this, you can use color pencils, markers, or you can just use pencil. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to start in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to write the sun. So we know the sun starts it. That's where everything ends up coming from. So if we know energy originally starts in the sun, and it travels down through sunlight, and then we'll say maybe a tree takes it in. So maybe I'll draw some dirt and we'll get a tree. And remember, you can pause, rewind, whatever you need to on this. So, and again, it doesn't have to be in color. So if we're talking about trees or plants, producers, whatever you want to call it. So we know producers get their energy from the sun, but that's not quite just it. So they take in energy from the sun, and what they do is they also release oxygen and they also take in carbon dioxide. And that whole process for them to take in carbon dioxide, also known as CO2, they take in carbon dioxide, they take in sunlight, and you can see with the arrows going in, and then releasing oxygen. That whole thing is called photosynthesis because they take in all those things and they're able to make sugar or food for themselves. And so this is an example of what we would call a producer. So we're going to write producer, and what they do is they obtain or they get energy from the sun through the process of photosynthesis. And I'm just going to kind of put a little bubble around this. So a producer obtains or gets energy from the sun through the process of photosynthesis. So that's them taking in sunlight, taking in carbon dioxide, and releasing oxygen. And so if we're talking about our energy flow, so we've got this whole energy, all right, well, it starts with the sun, and then we know it goes down into the trees. Well, it then, something ends up eating the trees. So I'm just going to draw arrow going over. And this would represent energy. I'm just going to shade this in just so we can see a little better. So the energy started with the sun, and then it ends up going into the producer, and then the producer now goes into the mouth. So like the arrow goes into what we would call a consumer. So I'm just going to, maybe I'll just draw like a rabbit or something like that. So bear with me on this rabbit. Or you could draw like a cat, dog, whatever, human, you name it. So this consumer and a consumer, they obtain energy from eating other organisms. So it's not like they can just take in stuff from the sunlight. They have to eat something else in order to get energy to survive. However, there's actually 3 different types, and hopefully this is a bit of a review for you. So when we're talking about 3 different types, one type is omnivores, and the prefix omni means both. So eat both plants and animals. That would be, for example, like us. We eat both plants and animals. However, there's also that eat only meat. that would be a carnivore. So eats only animals. However, there's herbivores, and the way I think of it is herb is like a type of plant, you know, like basil, thyme, that sort of thing. And herbivores eat only plants. So we've got 3 different types of consumers, and I'm just gonna kind of put this in a bubble just to make life a little easier for me. So energy starts with the sun, and then it goes, so starts with the sun, goes into the producer, then now goes into the consumer. Well, maybe I'll make my stuff look a little bit better. I'm gonna add in maybe some grass, because that could be a producer too. However, we know that the producers take in carbon dioxide, sunlight, release energy, but when we're talking about us or other producers, we take in oxygen. So take in oxygen to breathe, and then we release carbon dioxide. That's when we breathe out. Release carbon dioxide. So we breathe in oxygen and we take out carbon dioxide. So then the producer takes in the carbon dioxide and releases the oxygen. So it should be this whole circle thing. However, after our energy goes to our consumer, things don't just disappear. Well, they end up getting eaten by decomposers. So I'm going to draw my arrow going underground. I'm going to call it, this is our energy. So it's then going back into the ground, and this would be our decomposers. And our decomposers eat dead or decaying material, and then they release it back into the soil. So we're going to add that in. So decomposers, they eat dead or decaying material. So that would be like dead organisms, dead trees, that sort of thing. So they eat dead or decaying material and release nutrients back into the soil. And so once that happens, then the producers would then take those nutrients back up. So that would be our energy now coming back around. So we've got this whole cycle thing where we've got, all right, energy comes in from the sun, goes into producer, then goes into a consumer, comes back down to our decomposer, goes back around. But then we also have our taken carbon dioxide from the producer, release oxygen, we breathe in, like consumers take in oxygen, release carbon dioxide, and it goes back around. But some of you might be going, you left a spot over in the corner. Yeah, I did that on purpose. So what I'm gonna do is pretend like this is water. Because we have lots of things that are in lakes, in oceans, whatnot. So we'll just say that there's a fish. Yay, Mr. Fish. Well, in order for a fish to be able to breathe, they have to, and they're an organism, they take in oxygen. Where do they take in oxygen from? They take in oxygen from the water. It's dissolved in there. So I'm going to draw an arrow, and I'm going to say takes in oxygen. But where could that oxygen come from? Well, there's different plants that live in the water. So like seaweed or whatnot. And so the plants that live in the water, they release the oxygen, and the plants, so then the plants take in, release oxygen, then we know our fish or other organisms take it in and then release carbon dioxide. I'm just going to put CO2 because that's carbon dioxide. And then it kind of goes right back around. So that whole thing's happening underground or under the water as well.